Okay, so you were in the Marines, right?
Yes.
And can you say your name first? Full name, please.
Paul Frank Kanan.
And when were you born?
September the 10th, 1927.
And
You don't remember that.
where were you born and raised?
I was born in Greeley Township, Shelby County, Iowa. That's up between Defiance and Irwin,
Okay.
on a farm.
And how old were you when you went into the war?
I think I was 17 when I went in. In fact, I know I was. I graduated out of high school when I was 16. That's kind of unusual, but they weren't as strict them days as they are today, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, a lot of kids didn't even go to high school them days.
How did your family feel about you going into the war?
They, of course, were concerned because the war was on and but they was kind of glad I was going in the Marines because Mom's younger brother was in the Marines and a cousin was in the Marines and another cousin from Erling, Jim Shaban. I don't know if any of you guys know Jim Shaban. Well, they have a big auctioneer and a sale barn in Dunlap, Shaban, and they also are big in real estate. And he was in the Marines too.
Okay. And you weren't drafted, you went into the war willingly?
No, I enlisted. I wasn't drafted. See, they don't start drafting until you're 18.
Was it normal for a 17-year-old to go into the war?
Normal? I don't know. I didn't inquire about what was normal and what wasn't. Do you always? Before you do something?
How did you feel about the war when you were in the Marines?
Well, I tell you, I had a very much dislike for the Japanese because of what they did in Hawaii on Pearl Harbor. They made a sneak attack and bombed the base and sunk a couple of ships and killed, I don't know how many, hundreds, maybe even thousands of men. And I've been out there. I went out to Hawaii 5 winters in a row in the 80s. And that's after I retired from carpentering, you know, and we liked it out there. It's a warm climate and everything. And we went to the military bases where there's one big ship where there's a big memorial where a whole lot of servicemen died. And the Japanese, there was no excuse for a sneak attack like that without, you know, anybody knowing, just bombing the hell out of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like that. And of course I didn't like the Germans because of their, Adolf Hitler was just a plain, I don't know what to call him. I better not call him anything in front of you kids. But he killed, was responsible for the death of thousands of good people. They were Jewish, but they're the same as us, you know. That was just the way they was born in the Jewish religion, and he didn't like the Jews, so he put them all in concentration camps and killed them by the thousands. Mm-hmm. He was a regular. In fact, history probably considers him one of the most terrible villains of all times, Adolf Hitler. So I had plenty of things to not like about the war, and I was glad when it was over too.
Do you ever regret, or did you ever regret killing someone?
No, I didn't get into the military. I didn't get into actual combat.
Oh, my bad.
So I didn't have to kill anybody. And the only time I spent, like the last year or so, in Quantico, Virginia, at that Marine base and FBI base. It was like a college campus was like in the MPs. And there was only one time that's a military policeman. And the only one time I pulled my gun was one time they sent us down to there was a big naval hospital also on Quantico. See, the Marines is actually part of the Navy, you know. And what was happening, there was somebody breaking into the drug department, stealing drugs. And they told us to watch, and we was watching. I was alone that night out on one of the back corners of the hospital, and an alarm came that somebody was breaking into that, and I seen him take off running, and I hollered for him to stop, and he wouldn't stop, and I pulled out. I carried the whole time when I was in the Marines on duty a loaded .45, and I pulled it out, and I held it up, and I thought, no, I wasn't going to shoot him, because I just, you know,
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it, and so I didn't. Answer your question, I didn't kill anybody when I was in the Marines.
Did you have any type of boot camp for the Marines?
Oh yeah, that's in Parris Island, South Carolina. A very strict, tough boot camp, very strict. And the reason why I was on the camp base, I was in a tent out on the beach, because I was, we had some kind of a sickness, I don't know what it was, but a lot of the guys lost a few days. And if you lost just 1 or 2 days in training, when you went back into regular active duty, they sent you into a different platoon that was where you was when you left, see? So when I came back into that after being sick a couple of days, I was in a platoon that had trouble. DI, that's a guy, an officer, a drill instructor is his real name. They just for short to call him DI. Had took an M1 and struck a recruit in the back and paralyzed him. And because of that, they was holding the platoon as witnesses. But I wasn't a witness. I wasn't even in the platoon when it happened. But you know, that part didn't make no difference. But that's why I was still on Parris Island in boot camp deals when they bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And then right after that, the Japanese surrendered. But if it hadn't been for that, I may have went, because at that time there was such a slaughter going on in the Pacific that they didn't even send the recruits home after you got out of boot camp. You didn't come home like for years and years now. They do that. See, that's 60 years ago. That's 60 years ago. So now don't try to figure out how old I am. I'm a little older than what you think. Anyhow, they sent a lot of guys out of basic training in the Army and boot camp in the Marines and in the Navy right into the war because they needed them so bad, you know. But luckily, of course, now the Japanese held us bombing Nagasaki and Hiroshima just like we hold the Japanese for bombing Pearl Harbor, because those were both cities and we used the atomic bomb. You probably know that part. And it killed thousands and thousands of innocent civilians, women and children. And we were responsible for it because our president ordered the bombing and we was behind it. So it worked both ways. There was a lot of stuff in World War II that if you knew the whole details of it, you would have trouble sleeping at night.
Yeah. Did you ever keep a diary?
No.
No.
No, I never wrote anything down.
What was the food like?
Oh, basically good, because there were some people that complained about some of the stuff, but there's always been some people that have likes and dislikes. There's always been people that don't eat potatoes or meat or vegetables, or they want this and they don't like that.
Green peppers.
Yeah, but I like most everything. I'm born and raised on a farm, you know, and yeah, I thought the food was good, and I have no complaints about the food or anything else as far as that goes.
Did you ever think that we weren't going to win the war at any time?
No, I never worried about that. I just felt sure we would, yeah.
What'd you do for entertainment?
Well, there wasn't a whole lot of free time, and the training was so tough and rough that when you got back to the barracks, you plopped down somewhere and went to sleep, and then got up real early the next morning and grabbed your rifle and took off on again, you know. So there was very little entertainment. In fact, the whole time I was in the Marines, I don't think I ever went anywhere for a night out or anything like that there. It was all work and very little play. There was no entertainment.
How did you stay in touch with your family?
Well, I wrote when I could, and that's about all. We never called or anything like that. Them days, you know, nobody called. Used the telephone. Nowadays, people right here in the house, kids of ours had friends in Europe and stuff, and you know, like Brian, he used to have a friend. Where was he from?
John Petro.
Yeah, but where did he call all the time?
John, I don't know where it was.
But them days, through the mail was the only thing. And we had free mail, you know. When you wrote a letter, you just put it in an envelope and put your address on it and wrote free across the top. You didn't have to pay no. But our pay for the whole month was $47 or something like that for a month. now if a guy can't make $47 in a couple of hours, he goes and gets a different job.
Yeah.
And that was a month.
What did you think of your officers?
Some were pretty good, and some were just plain mean, and some of them were mediocre. Yeah, there were some of the officers really good, dedicated people.
How was the medical care?
The only time I had any problem was there in Quantico when it was like measles or something, you know, broke out, and it got kind of bad because they didn't get onto it right away, you know, like it should have been. But I can understand the reason for that too, because that naval hospital at that time was full, and every other hospital was, of guys coming back from military injuries, you know, with big wounds, legs and arms shot off, and all kinds of stuff like that. So measles or something like that is no big thing. But other than that, it was they did the best they could. I never complained about it.
Yeah. What were some of your main responsibilities?
My responsibilities? Well, when I was in the guard company, just like the same as a policeman in Ireland today, you watched out if one of the main things was traffic and standing at the main gate watching that nobody came in or out that wasn't authorized to, and at the hospitals and helping wherever they needed to and stuff like that. It was very similar to a civilian policeman. That's was the main work. Just I remember a lot of times I had to do duty, and I hated that. We all hated that because it was so monotonous. There was a bunch of railroad tracks coming down through Quantico, you know. Them days, you know, the railroads were big, you know. We're talking about in the 40s. I was in that's when I was in the Marines, was in the 40s. And there was half a dozen trains every morning and afternoon, and they didn't have any of these big crosses. And I guess what happens, several people would stop for a train going this way, you know, a freight train or something, and as soon as the caboose went by, they'd shoot out, and there'd be one that wasn't seen on account of the freight train, a passenger train, come zooming along and hit them, you know. So what we had to do in the guard company is stand there, and every time a train come by, we had a little bit of a shack, about the size of an outhouse, you know, just to get inside in case it was raining or something. And but we'd have to go out there with a big red flag, you know, and flag down the cars and stop them and make them stay there until the train was passed and there was none coming from either way. Because like I say, I think there's about a half a dozen tracks coming, you know. It was kind of the main drag coming from probably even up as far as New York, you know. D.C. ain't that far from New York. And they was all going down to the southern Carolinas and Virginia and Georgia and Florida and through there. But that and going to different events and stuff, making sure that there was no rioting or trouble or somebody getting too much to drink and causing a problem. And when the president come down to watch, he of course had his own guards, like all presidents always have had, but it didn't work. How many Lincoln got shot and how many others were shot and killed, you know.
So you got to meet the president? Did you get to meet the president?
A what?
Did you get to meet the president?
No, you mean shake hands with him or something like that? No, we weren't that, I was just a PFC. I was just, no, whenever a president around, there was always higher ranking officers that, you know, no, I didn't, I never shook hands with him or anything, but I stood for me to you from him and saluted him when he came into the base, you know. And that was, very few people have been that close to the president.
Do you have any stories that you want to add or anything?
Oh, nothing in particular. It's talking about assassination of presidents. Like I say, we just a couple of miles out of D.C., Washington, D.C., and being in the guard company, whenever we wasn't on duty, we had open gate. We didn't have to wait and get a pass or liberty or free time off. We just had to be there when we was on duty, and when we was on off duty, we went up to Washington, D.C. if we wanted to. And I seen putting everything that was up there, and one of the things I always remembered was the theater that Lincoln was shot in, and the cubicle up in the side where he was, right up from the stage. I've been in that, and right across the street from the theater's still sitting there, little old building, but you know, it was built probably in the middle of 12 or 1300s, you know. And right across the street was a home where they carried him and laid him in a bed, and where he died, you know, from his wounds. And I was in that home, and it's still one of the big attractions. If you go to Washington, D.C. next week, you could probably go there and go in that home and see where Lincoln died.
Yeah, I think I've been to the theater.
Yeah, and the theater is there. If you've ever been to Washington, D.C. and went to some of the sites, you've probably been there. Right?
Well, that's all the questions we're going to ask you.
All right, so what is your name?
Leonard Beeson,
Where did you live before you went to the war?
on the farm,
Where?
5 miles northwest of Defiance.
All right. Which war did you serve in?
World War II,
Which branch did you serve?
United States Navy.
Where exactly did you go?
Just went to Pearl Harbor, so, and then I was on a ship there and I just cruised around from island to island. The war was over then.
Oh, it was?
The war was over just a little while after I got in. I had to help my dad farm.
What feelings did you have about the war?
Which,
What feelings did you have about the war?
it was a bad one. Worst one the United States ever had.
Yeah.
400,000 people, or Americans, lost their lives in World War II.
How old were you when you entered the war?
22.
Alright. What were your family and friends' feelings about you going into the war?
Well, they didn't. I guess they tried to talk me out, but, well, not in a way. I didn't have no chance. I was drafted after. My dad had a heart attack after I got out of high school. I wanted to join the Navy right after I got out of high school. Then my dad had a heart attack, so then I had to help him farm. Then when my brother graduated from high school, then they said they wanted me to go to the Army. Of course, they said you don't have to. I was farming for myself at that time. And they said you don't have to go if you don't want to, but as soon as your brother gets out of school, they said we're going to take him then. And then I said I'd go in his place. I was going to let my younger brother go before me.
What different responsibilities did you have to take on?
Oh, nothing really in particular. I mean, just run of the mill. I did when we was traveling on water, I was most generally driving the ship. Well, you had two of us. We drove for 8 hours. We had a shift, and him and I would change off up on the bridge for the first 4 hours, and then after the next 4 hours, then we had to go way down in the hole in case when you turned the rudder, you would shear a pin, and then we'd have to steer it down there and replace that pin down there.
Wait. Wait. How did you stay in touch with your family?
Just wrote letters is all.
What was the food like there?
It was good.
It was good?
We had good food on the ship all the time. If you get to cook, woke up for breakfast, so we always had good food.
Did you have like plenty of supplies for food? Like, did you not have a lot, or was there plenty amount?
What?
Did you have plenty of supplies?
You mean food and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. There'd be a truck coming, load you at the dock.
How did people entertain themselves then? When you guys were there, you didn't?
You didn't have nothing. You had to go on ship. You didn't have no. I don't know if I even had a radio. It was just by talking with one of them. That's all you did, was to mute yourself. Some of them played cards. Some of them shook dice, but that was against the law of the United States Navy to gamble while he was in there. But few of them would do it as long as they didn't get caught.
Alright. Where did you travel while you were in the service?
Just the Hawaiian Islands.
Was there a boot camp you had to go to before you enlisted in the Army?
Well, yeah, I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, and there was 180 in that group, and then I told them right away I wanted the Navy. Well, there was 3 of us out of that 180 that time got to go to the Navy. At that time I didn't know it, but see, they wanted more in the Army, because at that time MacArthur, he wanted to come in from the south on Japan, but there was too many against that because they said it would be just murder if they did.
Do you have any photographs of when you were in the war?
Oh yeah, I got a few. You want some?
Yeah.
Bring that book once to me. You can just well sit in here. We ain't gonna bite you.
No, but I'll keep interrupting.
Get these pictures.
There was one of the. That was, I guess, our chapel over there in Pearl Harbor. There's the ship I was on. There's our chief officer. This was just a bunch of clowns like me. They're all a bunch of. I don't know if I get it. There's a guy. He swept up here, and I swept down there. He couldn't read or write. I don't know how he got in the Navy, but I had to write all his letters to his wife. He was married, and then when he'd get a letter from his wife, well, I would read it to him. But he could shoot dice. Boy, he could roll dice. He'd come one morning and one night and woke me about 2 o'clock in the morning. He says, kind of keep an eye open. He says, I made about $400 tonight. I didn't sleep the rest of the night because I know somebody, they didn't know if I was in this bunk or that one. He's laying there, I got mine all made up. That's the way, you had to have that bunk made up like that for inspection every day. That's a bunch. And this is when we was in a barracks. After they got off ship, we laid over there in Pearl Harbor for 2 months, just doing nothing. Worked in the laundry a little bit, is what I did. Waiting to get shipped back home again. That's the crew on our ship.
What's that?
That's the 6-inch guns, I think, on our ship. Those are the guns, see? The 4-inch. No, that might be the 4-inch gun. I don't know if we had the 6-inch or not. And we had the anti-aircraft guns. I suppose this is when we was out to sea. We wasn't very far out. We're just coming back in. You could see that. I don't know if I get any good pictures of that. That there's a supply ship. They got these are the wagons they bring it on. Their supplies, and they got their what would you call it, derricks or what, to lift the supplies off, and then they go out because you all couldn't get in the harbor right next to the harbor. That's pretty well my crew here. We're just all deckhands and gunners and seamen. This is the church I was showing you before. There's the laundry room that I worked in while I was waiting to get shipped back here to shore, be shipped back to the United States. kinda think if that's our ship or not, but I don't. There's a supply ship again. That's what the big laundry was like that I worked in, waiting to get back, shipped back to the United States. That was over in Pearl Harbor.
Did you ever kill anyone?
No, no, I never got into that part. I was going to show Larry here. No, I never got into the action like that. Now, where did I have that caster?
Did you ever worry that our side not might win the war?
Did what? No. But, no, I never thought about what that would be like. Because really wasn't much action when I got in there anymore. Except that we just kind of patrolled around so that in case some of them Japs still wasn't quite satisfied.
Do you remember your instructors?
Huh?
Do you remember any of your instructors?
Yeah, we had one that was. We had a captain. He was a good one. He was right down good to us and everything. But he meant what he meant when he said it to me. He didn't.
What did you think of your officers or fellow soldiers?
Well, I was satisfied. We had one little cook. He wasn't very good. That's something that you could wake him up if he was on the watch, and you'd wake him up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Only once while we was docked there, I had the 11, no, I guess I was getting off at 1. But about 11 o'clock I could hear somebody howl for help. And I looked, we had a guy that always sticking out his head out of the water under the docks. So I didn't know what to do. And I wrote it right away. We had a log that we kept track of. We had to write everything down on the log, anything that happened. So then this guy, we finally got the divers out, got the ship pulled away, and so we pulled the ship away with shore patrol come, I guess that's what it was. And they pulled us away a little bit, and we got him out of the water. And he said, "There's 2 more guys down there." But we never did find the 2. They wasn't down there. They made it see we was tied with a big rope like that, and up down onto the dock. And then these guys, they was absent over leave. They were supposed to be in by 12, and they wasn't. So they tried to crawl this rope up. Well, the 2 guys made it, but the 3rd guy didn't. He fell in the water. So I forgot we had to bail out.
Do you remember riding to Pearl Harbor and what it was like?
Which, yeah. It was pretty well all cleaned up when I got there, except the hard feelings. The Hawaiian Sea.
What made you decide to join the Navy?
Well, I was drafted.
Oh, you were drafted?
Yeah. Then I chose the Navy instead of the Army.
Did you have a victory garden or other ways to get enough food?
What?
Did you have a victory garden or other ways to get enough food?
No place to raise anything like that on board ship.
Was there like, was the health good? Like the people who took care of casualties?
Well, I guess I never got over in that part.
Was there a part on the ship that did that?
Not our ship. We had a destroyer. We had the battleships, the hospital ship, all the big ships. We was on the outside of them, protecting them. But I wasn't there when the Iowa was hit. But the Iowa still got hit with all the protection they had in it, you know.
Alright, well that should be enough. So,
Ain't much.
it was good.